Hello students, welcome to Narayana IAS. I'm Pratik, your presenter for Daily News Analysis. Now students, we all know that we discuss 5 important topics from the Hindu and the Indian Express for our daily news analysis. So let's have a quick glance over the topics that we shall be discussing. The first topic is about the Swaach Bharat Abhiyan. The author of the article tries to highlight that how the government of India has branded Swaach Bharat Abhiyan as successful, but the reality states otherwise. The second article talks about Article 244A, which provides for the creation of state within a state, and this applies or this is related with respect to a town called Diphu in Assam. The third article talks about National Clean Air Program. Now, the Ministry of Environment has allotted 10,000 crore for National Clean Air Program. Now, this program is dedicatedly focusing towards cities which has the highest particulate matter. The fourth article talks about the region called Bundelkhand. Now, the article tries to highlight that how the livelihood of people in Bundelkhand is getting affected because of the decline in diamond mining. The fifth article talks about Article 39B, which is the directive principle of state policy. Now, this DPSP states that the distribution of material resources should be such so as to serve the common good. These are the 5 topics that we shall be discussing. And in the end, we shall be discussing few practice questions so that you understand the types of questions asked in the UPSC examination. So students, let's get started. First article is about Swaach Bharat Mission. Now, again, it is very important to understand what is Swaach Bharat Mission, and this particular topic can be mapped with GS paper 2 in the government policies and intervention for development in various sectors and issues arising out of it. Again, a question of this nature can be asked in the UPSC examination. Mission Indradhanush launched by the government of India pertains to, right? So, it is important to understand the name of the schemes and its objective. Now, what is the context? India ranked at the bottom of 180 countries in the Environmental Performance Index in the year 2022. This is such an alarming data fact. But the government has rejected this particular Environmental Performance Index or the report of EPI, stating that the methodology used by the EPI was faulty. But the article has tried to focus on the challenges afflicting the Swaach Bharat Abhiyan and the measures that we need to take in order to overcome the issue, right? At the same time, the article tries to suggest that we need to focus on Swaach Bharat Mission. Why? So as to ensure better living standard, right? So let us try to understand what is Environmental Performance Index, because it can be asked in the prelims examination. Now, EPI, what it does is it ranks countries on the climate change performance. Now, EPI, Environmental Performance Metrics, is a metric developed by researchers of the Yale and the Columbia University in collaboration with the World Economic Forum. Again, a very, very important point for your prelims. It measures 40 performance indicators across 11 core issues such as air quality, drinking water and sanitation. It ranks the countries on a scale of 0 to 100. Better score indicates better performance. So again, a point for your prelims. Now, this EPI, it aims to provide policymakers, researchers and the people who work in the government with proper insights so that they can understand the impact of the government policies and measures with respect to the environmental performance. Now, let us also try to understand what is Swaach Bharat Mission. Now, it is one of the significant cleanliness drives launched by the Prime Minister of India in the year 2014. What was the objective? The objective was to eliminate open defecation, to ensure the management of solid waste, at the same time to bring about a behavioral change, to nudge the people to change their behavior in the sanitation practices. It was aimed to address water, sanitation and health issues, abbreviated as WASH issues. So, water, sanitation and health. The mission has two components. One is rural and urban. The rural mission, right? The rural mission focuses on construction of toilets and promoting the rural people to use it. And the urban component provides or focuses on improving the waste management and promoting cleanliness. Very important, right? Now let us try to understand the positive outcome of the Swaach Bharat mission. Now students, the construction of toilets has resulted in the reduction of open defecation. For example, this data is important. According to government data, the percentage of household practicing open defecation has decreased from 38% to 21.9%, which is a good thing. As of Jan 2022, over 12 crore toilets have been constructed under the Ministry of Jal Shakti. First positive outcome. Second, now constructing toilets and ensuring that people have access to the toilets has overall improved sanitation infrastructure. Over 10 crore individual household toilets and over 65 lakh community and public toilets have been built. Second outcome. Third is the behavioral change. Now, many awareness campaigns were started. Then the community started to engage the people who were given the task or who were having the responsibility were also given incentives to make the people understand, to increase awareness among the people, and that's the reason they were given incentives. Now, this has resulted in the overall behavioral change of the people. For example, according to UNICEF study, there has been significant increase in toilet usage in rural areas. This is the third positive outcome. Fourth, the government says that it has led to job creation, employment creation. For example, the government states that over 68 lakh jobs have been created as of Jan 2022. Because the construction requires laborers and the septic tanks and many things are associated with the construction. That's the reason that has led to employment generation. Environmental benefits. Now, the improved solid waste management has resulted in reduction of contamination of soil and water bodies. Now, according to Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, over 66,000 metric tons of waste was processed daily. So, this is the fifth positive outcome. But then students, every coin has two sides. We also need to understand the negative outcome or some of the loopholes, lacunas of the Swaach Bharat mission Abhiyan, so that you understand both the sides, which will help you in your mains examination. The negative outcome. Toilet usage and maintenance. Now students, toilets have been constructed, but unfortunately, the practice of defecating in the open is still practiced in some parts of our country. Despite the construction of toilets and because of lack of maintenance, people still are resorting to open defecation. For example, a study published in the journal BMC Public Health states that there are instances of underutilization. Why? Due to the cultural and behavioral factors. One, that is behavior, which means people are simply not willing to change their behavior, lack of water supply and inadequate maintenance. This is the negative outcome or loophole, lacuna. Second is sustainability of infrastructure. Just creating the infrastructure is not going to be sufficient. You have to ensure the infrastructure is sustainable. For example, just constructing the toilets is not going to be helpful. You also need to ensure that the toilets are regularly maintained. You have to ensure that water is supplied regularly. But unfortunately, this is not happening. So, as a reason, people are resorting back to defecating in the open. For example, a CAG report raised many questions about the government's claims of the success of Swaach Bharat Mission Abhiyan. The government had declared India to be open defecation free, but various reports highlight that India is far from reaching or achieving open defecation free status. Then inadequate waste management. Now, unfortunately, the waste management is not done properly, not done effectively, which means that the segregation is not happening properly. For example, inadequate segregation, then the waste is not being disposed, especially in the rural areas. So this is another loophole or lacuna, that the waste management is inadequate, it is not efficient. Now students, the people who are employed in the sanitation activities or sanitation work are people who come from the low rung of the society. For example, most of the people employed in these sanitation activities are Dalits. Now, unfortunately, this practice of giving such work to Dalits is further aggravating caste-based inequalities, caste-based discrimination. For example, the government or many municipalities of different states are outsourcing the urban or the management, the waste management, to the private sector or to private people. But the private peoples or the private sector, they are employing the same people, which means again that is leading to more and more caste-based discrimination. At the same time, the socio-economic status of these people or the people belonging to the lower rung is not getting changed, is not improving. So this is alarming. Social equity issue or social equality is our objective, is our aim, is the objective of our constitution. We unfortunately are far from achieving social equal society. So we have to ensure there has to be usage of capital intensive technologies so that people of or the people who are Dalits are not employed in the sanitation activity. At the same time, we have to ensure that the Dalits are empowered, Dalits are trained, they are imparted skills so that they can move from these sanitation based activities to something which is more meaningful, which is more impactful. Don't you think so? Financial sustainability. Now, if we had to get rid of the people who are involved in these sanitation activities, for example, we all know manual scavenging. Now, again, it is the people from Dalits who are employed in the manual scavenging activities. Now, what is manual scavenging? Here we get to see people who literally enter the manholes to clean the drainage. This has also affected their health. Many people die because of lack of oxygen or because of inhaling foul gas. So the best solution is that we have to employ technology, use technology so that we can reduce the employment of human beings to clean the sewage. But for that, you need considerable, substantial, significant financial investment. Then monitoring and evaluation. Most importantly, you also need to monitor and evaluate the policies of the government. Now, CAG, the Comptroller and Auditor General, has highlighted challenges in monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of Swaach Bharat mission interventions with respect to data collection, quality of infrastructure and program implementation. So these are some of the loopholes or lacunas existing in the Swaach Bharat mission Abhiyan. So what is the way forward? We have to link policies to human rights to effectively tackle environmental and developmental challenges. Human rights has to be taken into consideration. You have to ensure that the dignity of human beings is not trampled. Then there's need for significant changes and re-evaluation of development programs which should be emphasized so as to address the environmental degradation problem. Then again, to reduce the involvement of people in waste management, we have to employ technology, large capital intensive technologies, so that we can also reduce the caste-based discrimination. So in a nutshell, overall, the article tries to underscore the challenges existing in the Swaach Bharat Abhiyan mission and how it is important to have a holistic approach that considers social, economic and environmental factors to achieve sustainable development. I hope students, you have understood this particular article. This article is Article 244A, the Constitutional Promise of Autonomy for Assam in India. Now, important for you to understand are few key terms like tribal areas, 6th schedule and Article 244A. And this particular topic can be mapped with GS Paper 2. In GS Paper 2, we have a subtopic in name Devolution of Powers and Finances up to the local levels and challenges therein. So, a question of this sort nature can be asked in the UPSC examination. Under which schedule of the Constitution can the transfer of tribal land two private parties for mining be declared null and void. This was a question asked in the year 2019, right? So, what is the context? The context is that in the Assam's tribal majority Diphu Lok Sabha constituency, now this town becomes important for your prelims, right? Now, this Lok Sabha constituency Diphu will be casting its votes on April 26th. And all the candidates of all political parties have promised the people of the implementation of Article 244A. So, this is the promise that the candidates of all political parties have made to the local people of the Diphu Lok Sabha constituency. So, let us try to understand what is Article 244A. Now, students, Article 244A was introduced by 22nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1969. Students, this provision, Article 244A, provides for the creation of a state within a state, which means there is a state and another state, autonomous state, is being created within a state. This article provides for creation of an autonomous state within a state, which means, students, this autonomous state would have its own legislature, that is Vidhan Sabha, at the same time own Council of Ministers. Which means this autonomous state would have greater autonomy than the areas which fall under 6th schedule. We'll try to understand what exactly is 6th schedule. Which means this autonomous state would have more and more autonomy in comparison with two areas under the 6th schedule. Now, why is this Article 244A important for Diphu Lok Sabha constituency? Because this demand has been a long-held demand. This is a long demand, that is, since 1950s, the people of this area are demanding or expecting Article 244A to be implemented. As of now, students, this area is governed under 6th schedule, which means that this region has a predominantly tribal population, and people in this region have their own social and cultural identities. Now, as we discussed that the candidates of all political parties are promising the people that Article 244A would be implemented if you vote for us, that is, vote for our political party, which means this demand by the local people reflects the community's desire for self-governance or self-governance and enhanced control over their affairs, which means they want more and more control over the affairs in the Diphu town. Now, what is 6th schedule? Now, 6th schedule relates to the administration of tribal areas in 4 states. Which are these 4 states? Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram and Assam. Again, a very, very important point for your prelims. Now, in these 4 states, autonomous district councils are created. These autonomous district councils have the responsibility, mandate to safeguard the interests of the tribal population, at the same time ensure the social and economic development of the people in the tribal areas. The ADCs have legislative, executive and financial powers, which means they have given autonomy to regulate the practices in their region. At the same time, they have given legislative, the power to make laws, the power to execute, that is executive, at the same time judicial powers, which means more and more autonomy has been given to the people who live in that particular region, or so to say the tribal region. And the 6th schedule, the objective behind 6th schedule is for the protection of tribal land, customs and culture. Okay. Now, let's try to understand the social and political profile of the Diphu Lok Sabha constituency. Now, Diphu is located in Assam and serves as one of the 14 Lok Sabha constituency of the state of Assam. This region has a sparse population with around 9 lakh voters. This region is reserved for scheduled tribes, ST. Again, a point for your prelims. Now, this Diphu Lok Sabha constituency has 6 legislative assembly constituencies, which is spread across 3 hilly district regions named Karbi Anglong, West Karbi Anglong and Dima Hassan. Right? So, this is the political profile that you expected to know. Now, this Diphu constituency is diverse. Why? Because it is home to many tribal communities. For example, we have the Karbi, we have Dimasa, we have Mar, we have Kuki, we have Ringma, then we have Naga, then we have Zemi Naga, then we have Bodo, Garo, Assamese, Bengali, Bihari, and Gorkha. These are the different types of people or communities that live in this particular constituency. And since 1977, the members of Karbi community have consistently represented this seat. And with respect to all the Assam or the assembly seats, the members of BJP have the representation or are representing the 6 assembly constituency seats. Talking about the autonomy movement and the historical development. Now, the demand for autonomy dates back to the late 1940s with the creation of Meghalaya in the year 1972, which means the demand is not a new one. Now, the Karbi Amlong, it chose to stay with Assam. Why? Because they had the expectation that Article 244A would be implemented. But over the years, because of failure or because of lack of support to implement Article 244A, it led to armed insurgencies as well as few peace settlements followed by peace settlements. Now, failure to protect the local customs traditions, failure to ensure the socio and economic development has led to brutal and violent armed conflicts which engulfed the northeast region for over 5 and 6 decades. Again, this article or this point states that how different political parties have been repeatedly promising the people of Diphu that Article 244A would be implemented, but unfortunately so far it has not been implemented. So the local people have expressed frustration over the lack of progress post-elections. So after elections, once they win, they fail to implement the promise that they made to the people, and it also highlights a disconnect between election promises and actual policy implementation. So let's also try to have a brief understanding of the armed insurgency in Northeast. Now students, the armed insurgency in Northeast is characterized by ethnic, political and socio-economic factors, which means these are the factors that were responsible for the brutal armed insurgency in the entire Northeastern region. So there are many communities, ethnic communities in Northeast who have been either seeking autonomy or independence from India, and these are ethnic based demands that arise or coming from different communities in Northeast. At the same time, different ethnic communities also have clashes over the control over resources. Then, the region's porous border and rugged terrain has affected the law and order in the Northeastern region. Why? Because it is easy for the armed militants to migrate to other side of the country, that is to Myanmar. So they attack the security forces in India and migrate to other side, that is in Myanmar. So they have established safe havens in Myanmar. That's the reason it has affected the law and order situation of the entire region. Now, this insurgency over a period of decades has led to widespread violence, human rights abuses, displacements of populations, and which overall has affected the economic development. Now, despite sporadic peace talks and agreements, right? There have been peace talks, there have been agreements, but the root cause even now are political marginalization and the socio-economic disparities. And these issues even now remain to be addressed. So the overall conclusion is that the people of Diphu town want that the implementation of Article 244A should happen as soon as possible. So again, despite repeated promises by different political parties, the political parties or candidates have simply failed to implement Article 244A, and there's a challenge of aligning political rhetorics, big talks, with the tangible political action, right? So this was about the Diphu Lok Sabha constituency and Article 244A. I hope students you have understood the crux and overall idea of this particular article. Students, the next article is on the National Clean Air Program. Now, in this context, we need to understand what is National Clean Air Program, air pollution, and then National Ambient Air Quality Standard. This is a key term that we need to understand. Again, you can link this particular topic with prelims as well as mains. In mains, you can link it with GS paper 3 under conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. So let's start. Question of this nature can be asked in examination, right? Acid rain is caused by the pollution of environment by, right? The context. The context is Ministry of Environment has allotted 10,000 crore rupees for the implementation of National Clean Air Program in cities which has high particulate matters. This is the context. Now, the National Clean Action Program, or this program, mandates the cities with high particulate matters to develop and execute what? Clean Air Action Plan. That is, every city with high particulate matter have to execute this particular plan. But most cities have submitted their plan, but when it comes to implementation, they simply failed. For example, according to ministry reports, only 60% of the allocated funds had been utilized. For example, when it comes to cities like Visakhapatnam and Bengaluru, the funds were hardly used, with expenditure at 0% and 1%. Now, the program's effectiveness is often compromised by delays. Delays in terms of getting approvals for technical specifications or procurement, that is buying process for essential equipment like the electric buses and the mechanical sweepers. Again, National Clean Air Program is something that you need to understand, know for your prelims examination. Now, what is this? This was launched by the Ministry of Environment in the year 2019. The objective was to tackle air pollution. So, a long-term solution had to be thought of in order to tackle the air pollution problem. The target was by 2024, the target was to reach 20 to 30% reduction in particulate matter, but this has been updated now. The target is 40% reduction by 2026, 40% by 2026. Again, all these points are important for your examination. Now, coverage under National Clean Action Program, 132 non-attainment cities have been identified. Now, what do you mean by non-attainment cities? Now, they are those cities that have fallen short of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. All those cities that have fallen short of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards over 5 years, right? So, this is the National Clean Air Program, students. I hope you understood the article. Students, the next topic pertains to the Bundelkhand region. Now, again, important to understand the water scarcity problem. Again, you can map this particular topic with GS paper 3, that is mobilization of resources. Question: India is well endowed with freshwater resources. Critically examine why it still suffers from water scarcity. A question asked in the year 2015. What is the context? Now, students, the diamond mines in Bundelkhand, which was once a source of livelihood to scores of people, has been witnessing a decline in production. Reason? Due to water scarcity. Let's try to understand the causes of decline in the mining or the diamond mining activities. One is the water scarcity. Now, there is no water in the Bundelkhand region. Now, the diamond mining activities, it requires substantial amount of water. There is no water. That's the reason it has led to decline in diamond mining activities. Second, environmental degradation. Exploiting the natural resources and improper waste disposal practices has led to degradation. This is further exacerbating or worsening the water scarcity issue. Third issue, regulatory challenges. For example, strict, stringent environmental regulations have made it difficult for the owners of diamond mining to operate profitably, and this has resulted in reduction in investment and exploration activities. These are the reasons. How it is impacting the livelihood? First is loss of employment. There is no employment. Why? No investment, leading to loss of job. Second, economic strain. Now, because of loss of jobs or loss of livelihood, it is affecting the poverty levels. It has led to increase in the poverty levels. Social disruption. Now, the tribal people who are living in the Bundelkhand region have been witnessing social disruption. They are yet to cope up with the sudden loss of job. So this is how it is impacting the livelihoods of people living in the Bundelkhand region. So what are the alternative opportunities? We have to focus on agriculture diversification. Now, India is an agrarian country. That's the reason we have to promote agriculture diversification, and we have to implement practices, farming practices which are sustainable. Second, tourism development. Now, Bundelkhand as a region is rich in culture. So we can promote tourism in the region by promoting ecotourism and heritage tourism, which can also help in income generation. So these are the alternative opportunities, solution that we can think of. Skill development programs. It is important to impart skills. For example, vocational training can be imparted among the Indian tribals so that can help them in income generation. So these are the alternative opportunities. Way forward, water management strategies. Now, in order to overcome the water scarcity, we have to focus on water management strategies, which includes rainwater harvesting, watershed management, irrigation techniques. This will help to reduce water related problems. Then, sustainable mining practices. Now, such practices should be adhered which are sustainable, which does not impact or harm the environment. For example, we can focus on water recycling. Third, river linking project. We can focus on linking the rivers or inter-basin water transfer schemes. So the water can be transferred from the region which has more water to the regions which has less water. So through this, we can address the needs of water deficient regions like Bundelkhand. This can support both mining as well as the agriculture activities. So this is the solution. I hope students have understood the article. Students, the article pertains to Supreme Court's observation on the term material resources of the community. So let us try to understand. It is very important to understand what is community resources, the same time DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy. And this topic can be mapped with GS paper 2, right? So again, a question of this nature can be asked in the examination. Statements regarding the DPSP, few statements regarding DPSP, which are the statements given above are correct. Now, what is the context? The context is that the Chief Justice of India and a 9-judge bench are currently deliberating over the term, which is the term material resources of the community. The key question is whether the privately owned resources can also be considered under the material resources of the community. Now, this term material resources of the community is mentioned in Article 39 Clause B of the Directive Principles of State Policy. We'll understand what is Article 39. So, the question is whether privately owned resources can be considered under the material resources of the community. Now, what is Article 39 Clause B? It pertains to Directive Principles of State Policy. What is DPSP? Directive Principles of the State Policy are the principles that are directed by the Constitution to the state, which means the Constitution is pushing the state to implement the principles as mentioned, the directive principles. What is Article 39B? It emphasizes the principle of equal ownership and distribution of material resources, which means the material resources should be so distributed so as to serve the common good. It aims, 39B Clause B, aims to promote economic democracy and reduce inequalities in wealth and income. It also underscores the importance of equitable distribution of resources as a means to achieve social and economic justice. This is what is Article 39B. Now, as we discussed, the court is addressing whether private resources, privately owned resources can also be considered within the meaning of the term material resources of the community. Now, the Supreme Court has said that it would be little extreme to suggest that material resources would mean resources which do not have their origin in the private property. The Supreme Court held that to consider private resources not a part of the community resource would be a little extreme. The Chief Justice of India, Dhananjay Chandrachud, argued that if we exclude private property from 39B, it would be dangerous. Why? Because example, private forests and mines. So if private forests and mines are excluded from the term community resources, it would lead to undesirable outcome. This is what the CGI had to remark. Now let's also understand this particular case of the year 1978. Now in this case, in the year 1978, the case dealt with the origin and beneficiary of resources. Now this ruling in the year 1978 indicated that resources not originating from the community could be considered under Article 39 Clause B, which means even the private resources can be considered within the meaning of the term community resources. Now let us try to understand the historical and philosophical perspective over the community resources. Now the CGI emphasized to understand the importance of the intentions behind the constitution. What was the intention behind the constitution? The intention was social transformation. The intention was social transformation, and that's the reason this perspective suggests that societal needs and redistribution should influence the interpretation, which means the societal needs or the social interpretation, the social transformation, this is the objective. So this should influence the understanding of the term community resources. There's also philosophical basis. For example, this with respect to property rights. Now here we have the capitalistic notion which focuses on exclusivity. And there's a socialistic notion which sees property as a means to serve common good. So one, we have the capitalistic notion, and on the other hand we have the socialistic notion. Now again, the Chief Justice of India has mentioned the need to re-examine Article 31 Clause C. Now Article 31 Clause C was repealed via 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. Now Article 31 Clause C said that a law which provides for the acquisition of property cannot be challenged on the ground that it violates Article 14 and 19 of the Constitution. That's the reason it was repealed by the Supreme Court via the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. That's the reason now the CGI is stating that we need to re-examine this Article 31 Clause C. So students, I hope you understood the crux of the article, right? So this topic will come in the news again and again because there's a confusion over the interpretation of the term community resources. So please follow this particular news whenever it comes in the newspaper, right? Students, it's time to discuss few questions. Now going through these questions will help you understand the types of questions the UPSC can ask in the examination. So let's get started. Question number 1. The question number 1 is the provisions in the 5th schedule and the 6th schedule in the Constitution of India are made in order to. These are the 4 options. Now students, again this is a very simple question because the 5th and the 6th schedule pertains to the protection of the interests of the scheduled tribes and the scheduled areas as well. That's the reason the correct answer is option A. Students, let us focus on question number 2. The question number 2 is, consider the following statements regarding the directive principles of state policy. We already have discussed what are directive principles of state policy. These are the principles that directs the state to implement the principles as mentioned in the directive principles. So the statement 1 is Article 39B ensures the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of wealth. Now this is incorrect. Why? Because we had discussed in our daily news analysis that Article 39BC pertains to the material resources, that is distribution of material resources so as to serve the common good. So this is incorrect. 47 promotes the prohibition of consumption except for medicinal purposes of intoxicating drinks. This is correct. 44 talks about uniform civil code. Even this is correct. So how many of the above statements are incorrect? Only one. That is A has to be the correct answer. Yes. Now, which of the following is not an allotrope of carbon? Now, what is an allotrope? Now, carbon or the different types of carbon or the different physical forms of carbon are considered or known as an allotrope. diamond is an allotrope, graphite is an allotrope, then we also have graphene as another allotrope, then fullerene as another allotrope, and the say delta carbon is, there's no such term. That's the reason not an allotrope. Option D has to be the correct answer. Now, which of the following can be used to alleviate the problem of water scarcity? Implementing river linking projects, yes, it is important. Encouraging sustainable mining practices, yes. Promoting environmental conservation, all seems to be correct. So, option D has to be the correct answer. It's a very simple question. Consider the following statements about the National Clean Air Program. The NCAP aims to reduce the concentration of particulate matter by 40% by 2026, not 2030. Right? We did discuss that. The target had been updated. That is, now it should be 40% by 2026. Earlier it was 2024. The year 17 is kept as a base year. Yes, this is correct. So, option B has to be the correct answer. Now, let's discuss a means question. Now, what strategies and initiatives can be implemented to transition India's sanitation mission from a focus on toilet construction to decentralized community-driven cleanliness model, fostering public participation, making Swachhata a fundamental aspect of the national way of life, right? So, students, in the introduction, you have to start your answer by introduction. In the introduction, you can mention that the switch, the transition from toilet construction activity to a holistic base activity marks a significant transition in sanitation mission, right? Now, this shift aims to address not only the physical infrastructure but also the behavioral and cultural aspect. And again, the Swachhata campaign should also focus on public participation and decentralization. These are the points I have to mention in the introduction. So, what are the schemes or initiatives that we can think of, to make the Swachhata mission a successful one? The community engagement and empowerment. One, that is, you have to empower the local people. You have to put them in the driver's seat. You have to make them a leader so that they can lead and cleanliness drive to ensure and enforce necessarily behavioral change. Then education and behavioral change. Now, education is only that tool, or is the only tool through which we can be in a position to ensure that the behavior of people are getting changed. For example, we can have awareness programs and many such initiatives. The third one is infrastructure maintenance and upkeep. We have to invest in our infrastructure. Now, just to build infrastructure won't be sufficient. What is important is also to ensure that maintenance has to be regular. Innovation technology. Now, again, we did discuss that how the cleanliness activities is perpetuating caste-based discrimination. So, the solution that we can think of is to get rid of people in these sanitation activities. For example, in activities like manual scavenging. And how can we do that? By focusing on innovation, by focusing on technology. That is, we have to invest in the capital intensive technologies, right? And the last is policy support and governance. There has to be a commitment from the government, from the policies, so that the vision that is seen through Swachh Bharat Abhiyan should be materialized into action, right? So, these are the steps that we can take to ensure that this Swachhata Bharat mission is successful. Conclusion, again, we need to have a comprehensive approach that prioritizes improvements in human development and poverty reduction. And how can we do that? By investing in education, healthcare, social protection and inclusive economic policies. This is the only way through which India can ensure sustainable development, promote social equity and ensure that the growth that we see is the growth for each and every segment and every section of the population. I hope students have understood how to write an answer. And that's it from our daily news analysis session. So students, that's it from our daily news analysis session. If you want us to continue with our daily news analysis, please to like, share and subscribe Narayana IAS. Thank you so much.